Hey everyone, Egman here with another video, and today we're going to look at the top 10 cards and archetypes from the Series 9 Universal Onslaught set. This has been a really hard list for me to make. I usually make these like before the meta actually resolves for any of these, and there are just so many kind of cards and combos and archetypes. Really, this has been a really archetype heavy set, and a lot of them just seem really viable. So this has been a really difficult list for me to make, but I'm excited to go through it. More or less, the way that the numbering, the ordering shouldn't matter too much, and it shouldn't be like a hard like, oh, this is the best deck right now and all that, but just more of the potential I see in it, and kind of vice versa. Just because something's not on here doesn't mean that I don't think it can't be good. It's just not immediately clear to me. And just because something is on here doesn't mean it is going to be good, right? But I think I'm pretty confident in a bunch of these cards, and let's just jump on into it.
Number 10.
First up, we've got the extra combos, as I like to call them. These are the 3-drop extra cards that, one, have effect if you have like the same color as your leader, but also at any time you can just use this as a combo, and it's pros and cons. You get to give something plus 5k immediately, which normally means it can survive something or it doesn't get blown up as easily, but also it can't be used for like an arrival cost. So a little give and take, but I think these cards are really good. All the effects are fantastic. Just going down the line, the idea is that you can use 3 energy to blow up anything on your opponent's side of the field, right? So demonic absorption. If your leader card is black, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, send it to their warp. Barrier of Hope, same thing, ignoring barrier, but they return to the owner's hand. You draw 2. With Artificial Impact, you KO a card and your opponent has to drop a card from hand. Cease to Exist is you get to go up to 2 of your opponent's cards, ignoring barrier. So I mean, like at turn 3, this can like wipe a field almost, depending on what you're playing against. But yeah, I can just pop 2 things with 25k power or less, which is very, like, most of the cards in the game right now that are seeing play have 25k power or less. Or there are a couple of 30ks too, but it's not too terrible for this to just pop 2 really big targets. And then lastly, we've got Justice Blast, which is probably one of the kind of weaker ones, but yeah, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, so it has to be in rest mode. Ignoring barrier, negate its skills for duration of the turn, then KO it. So this can get around like indestructible, I guess, but this one doesn't, it doesn't excite me as much. And I think like they did this because of Mecha Frieza still. They just need to get rid of Mecha Frieza, and then like yellow extra cards can be good again. But until then, I think all these are fantastic. Just to, have the ability to just blow up something. Ignoring barrier, you can, making Path to Greatness, Height of Mastery harder than ever. But I think these are good, and worst case is a combo card, and you can also just charge it for free. These are good cards.
Number 9.
Next up, we've got the Android 13 archetype. They got a lot of support in this, and it's really cool. Like, this is a really old leader. It's almost 2 years old, and just adding a couple cards makes it relevant again. And this leader was never particularly good either, but now it has some contention. So if you don't know what it does, the front side's really lame. It only but it has this permanent that if you have a 14 and 15 in your drop area, you can activate this card's Awaken with 6 or less. So you get to draw 2 and flip it over, and then the Awaken side, it's an attack, you draw 1, but also gains crit as long as you send a battle card from your opponent's hand to the drop by a skill, at least with an energy cost of 6 or less. Are strictly any Son Goku, which is really weird, but yeah, but these effects really stack together. So we've got probably the best card for this archetype is the Android 14 Stoic Fist. So if your leader card is an Android 13 card, you choose this card in your hand, and 1 Android 15 card in your hand, placed in your drop area, choose up to 2 cards in your life, add them to your hand, draw 1, then your opponent chooses 1 card in their hand and place it in the drop. This card alone, with an Android 15 in hand, just means you awaken on turn 1 immediately, and then your opponent goes -1 in hand. And then you also get to awaken, so you get 2 cards from your life, you get 1 card from the top of your hand, and then you also get 2 cards for awakening. So you get 5 cards. You have to discard 2 cards for the 14, 15, but that's still a +3. And then your opponent discards 1, so that's a +4, like immediately a +4. And then your leader's awaken, which means if you swing, you're a +5 again. And it's a lot of value, a really crazy effect, and only can be restricted to such a lackluster leader otherwise, right? And then on the flip side, the Android 15, so if your leader card is green at the end of battle in which you combo this card from your hand, play it in rest mode, and then auto, choose 1 or 2 cards in your life, add to your hand. When you play this card during your opponent's turn, choose 1 of your green energy and switch to active mode. So this also has like some 10k defense, and as long as I think you have to take the life, but when you do, you're able to just get some defense there, and then it's a 3-drop out, which is great for Successor. And then lastly, we've got this Android 17. I really like this card, and it's just a real shame it's stuck to this leader. I would have been okay with it had a Successor cost of 3 if it was restricted to just Android leaders, but it's only for Android 13. But you choose once per turn, you choose 3 Android cards from the bottom or from your drop area, place them bottom of your deck in any order, and then you can choose one of your opponent's cards in rest mode, KO it, and then your opponent drops 2 cards. So it's kind of like a 3-for-3 kind of thing, and it's not super hard to get androids into a drop area as well. And this new Android 13 also is a great way for getting it out, because you can, on your opponent's turn, they swing, you play 2 to get this Android 13 out. It comes in rest, but it's also 20k body, so it's hard to hit over. And then on your next turn, you're able to just use 2 energy to go into any of the 13, so either the new one or the old one, and then that just helps out so much. So I like all these cards. They have a lot of synergy, and they're really neat.
Number 8.
Next up, we've got like this Android Successor archetype, and I'm using the Cell Surge leader for this, but this could also be used partially with like the Android 20 leader. I think both these leaders are fantastic for it, and they both have some different strengths, but Cell gets to take advantage of this Quick Sweep Android 17 and also this Cell Android Absorber. Both these cards are super good, being able to get value from the drop area, and it makes it like so you don't actually like lose cards in hand, right? You get to play it from you can use them for comboing, and then you can pay 1 and bring them back, right? And if you use them for comboing twice, that means you get like a free 10k in a lot of ways. So I really like these 2 cards. It really kind of gets around the fact that Cell doesn't like gain value by itself on its leader side, but it's kind of like how Android 13 is. The leader itself is kind of lackluster, but it's the cards that you're able to run with it, which makes it good. So I like that. And then like Android 20 is also a great card. And if you don't know what the Android 20 leader does, he kind of does the same thing, but he just looks top 3 for an Android and you add it to your hand. So neither of these leaders have to swing to gain advantage per se. And Cell's really weird with advantage, but I digress. But the big thing about that is that both of these are perfect leaders for the Super 17 Hellstorm Unleashed. Really neat card. So Successor for 3 with 2 green and 1 yellow. But when you play this card, choose cards in your opponent's life and place them in the drop area until they have only 4 cards left in their life. And when this card attacks, draw 1. Your opponent chooses 2 cards and switches to the rest mode. You choose up to 2 of your opponent's cards and switch in rest mode. Fantastic card, being able to just put pressure. And if you're playing against like a really like slow control deck, this like ruins them so much. They minus 4 cards, and you have like this 30k crit, and it just a lot of disruption and a really cool card. And you can get this out on turn 3 without too much difficulty. So that's super nice. These 6-drop Successor targets are nice as well. Android 17 has Barrier, which is good for surviving things. And also, it's just switching cards to rest mode and drawing cards when you swing, or when this is placed in your drop area by a skill. So this lets you be able to draw 2 cards at least, and then also you can switch up your opponent's cards and switch to rest mode, which can include like energy or their leader cards as well. And there's also Cell Devourer of the Masses. So also Successor for 2 green or 2 energy, 1 green, 1 yellow. You get to, when you play this card with Successor, you get to pop something with Barrier, and also choose one of your opponent's cards and make them discard. So this card's really nice, and then it doesn't have like Barrier per se, but if it's removed from battle area by an opponent's skill or KO'd, you get to draw 3. So that's awesome, and you can like, since Cell's like really good except for hand advantage a lot of the time, like your opponent won't want to destroy this, which is nice. And then also the 9-drop Cell being able to, it's a for 4 Successor, but the neat thing about Successor is that you can Successor on itself. So you can, if you really want to like get more value with this, if you have to pop 2 things, you can just play another Successor the Cell on top of itself and blow up something and make your opponent discard another card. But same thing with the 9-drop. So like you can get this out on turn 3, and then on turn 4 you can get the Cell Unthinkable Perfection. Which is great for just looking at your opponent's hand in general is a fantastic thing. But then also you get to drop 3 cards and negate your opponent's leader cards non-keyword skills. So if you're playing against Janemba, they can't use their Janemba negate. If you're playing against Super Saiyan God Son Goku Surge Leader, they can't use their like pump effect or like ability getting rid of skills effect either. So great finisher and really cool. And then lastly, the secret rare. A lot of people have been talking about this card. You can technically get this out for very cheap, and good thing it has this if you have 5 or more energy tag, because if it didn't, this card would be completely broken. But this is a nice card. I don't think it's needed in any of these archetypes, but it's just like a win con in so many ways. Like, this can steal you games just by itself, but I think it's a great card and it just fits the archetype very well.
Number 7.
Next up, we've got Black Smoke Dragon. This is one of the secret rares, and boy howdy is it a good one. It draws a lot of comparisons to the Jameger secret rare that we got like a year and a half ago. But this card's fantastic. So if you don't know what it does, permanent, this card can attack. If you have 12 or more cards in your drop area, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 5. And then active main once per turn, you can choose one. You can choose all of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring Barrier, and send them to their owner's warps. Send the top 7 cards from your opponent's deck to their warp and draw 2, or you can choose 4 cards from your opponent's hand and send them to their warp. All of these effects are good, and there's not a deck that exists that wouldn't want one of these abilities on turn 5, right? Being able to just wipe your opponent's field, fantastic. Being able to mill your opponent or just get like a +2, it's probably going to be milling, honestly, so this would be really good in like red cooler, right? The mill cooler if you're going for the mill win condition. And then also you can just choose 4 cards in your opponent's hand and send them to their owner's warp. So like that's like on par almost with like the Cell secret rare. Just being able to make them drop 4 cards just because is very, very good. So if you don't have a secret in your deck, there's nothing that fits. This is going to be a secret rare you're running in so many decks as long as you have 12 or more cards in your drop area, right? If you're playing against a deck, if you're using a deck that has like a lot of overwhelm and stuff, you're probably not going to use this. But I think this has a lot of flexibility and probably going to be like one of the best like generic secret rares in the game for a while. Just kind of like how Jameger was, and just like, oh, can you play this card at some on turn 5? Would this be a good play? Cool, put it in your deck. You can win games with it. I think this is going to be a very similar card. So nice, and let's go to the next one.
Number 6.
Next up, we've got this red hit leader. I haven't, so I honestly don't have a lot of time before Vegas, and so I've been wanting to do a deck profile with this, and I just haven't been able to sit down and do it. And especially since this leader's so open-ended, you can do so many things. But he's fantastic. I think like he can just be like a solo good leader, and you can just put good stuff in him. Being able to, like, when this card attacks a leader card, you draw 1, and this card gets plus 5k power. So that's kind of like a draw 2. I always figure that 5k is like 1 card is worth about 5k of power. So being able to quote unquote draw 2 and just put pressure on your opponent, because they're gonna have to take this unless they invest cards into it. And then it's an untap 1, draw 1, and then on the awaken side, so when this card attacks, draw 1. This card gains plus 5k power, and for the duration of the turn, and then choose up to 1 skillless battle card from your drop area with energy cost of 2 or less and play it, which is just like a +3. And the fact that it can be like a 20k card, but also like the way that I like the cheese combo is you get this vanilla hit, and then you're like, oh boy, if I got this out for free, and then if I do, I can get lightning fast hit out for 5, and then snipe my opponent for 2 life. So like all this, I think it's a cute little thing to do. So and this would be my deck profile that I would do for it. So kind of dibs on that. But lastly, it also has this active main battle of once per turn. So you can choose 1 card in your hand, place in your drop area, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with double strike, critical, or blocker, and KO it. That's just crazy, being able to just, and this can be activated like on your opponent's turn because it's active battle, as well as active main. So being able to just pop something, it just means like either like your opponent's doing only single strike damage, or they have to bait this out first. But it's just like it has this really cool like defensive mechanic, and you're going to have a lot of cards in hand because you're not going to have to like combo extra. Like the 5k every time you swing really helps out your only card advantage in a lot of ways. So really like this leader. I'm surprised I haven't seen more deck profiles with it, but I think it's going to be very good.
Number 5.
Heading into the top 5, we've got this Universe 11 Jiren kind of successor. I don't know, like this is like a really weird archetype, and a lot of the success that I've seen other people use, they don't really use the successor. They just use the fact that this leader is super broken. So if you don't remember what this guy does, you choose 1 card in your life and add it to your hand, and when this card attacks, you either draw 1 card, and this gains plus 5k power for duration of the turn, or you choose 1 Universe 11 card from your hand with an energy cost 2 or less and play it. I'm going to just say like this front side is super duper broken. There's so much value you get from it, And like even without having like the fact that like this just reminds me of like the yellow Broly leader in so many ways, but it's strictly better, right? It's not like, and I think they should have maybe limited to like when this card attacks a leader, but no, it's just when you attack anything, and then you either go what +2 and get a +5k to your leader, or you get to just cheat out 2 energy worth of stuff. Both effects super great, and it's just crazy that they put it on this leader. So, and then on the Awaken, when your life is at 4 or less, you draw 1 and untap 1. And then down here, same kind of thing with this card attacks, draw 1, and this card gets +5k power duration the turn. If it had both again on the Awaken side, that'd be crazy bonkers. Like being able to just do that later in the game for like cheap Successor, that'd be super good. But it already has this broken thing of choose 1 card in your life add to your hand until the start of your next main phase. As long as you have a Universe 11 card in play, you don't take damage from your opponent's attacks. This could be procced during like either player's turn, and like if you're afraid of it, like on your opponent's turn, you can like proc it early if you want, but also like the card goes to your hand, which is crazy that you're able to get card advantage. Like I feel like this should have been like a 1 to the drop, but it's not, and yeah, you just stay alive. Of course, you have to keep like your you have to keep Universe 11s onto the field, so that can be the tricky part there. But we've got this Kunshin here that just gives itself barrier, and then all the rest of your cards barrier, which is crazy. Being able to do that is super nuts. And additionally, like you have this like Binary Blade, Casserole, being able to just cheat out cards. Like there's a lot of ways just to cheat out a bunch of Universe 11 cards out, especially like with this Jiren, Righteous Leader, being able to choose 2 more, and just all this. Like this deck is really good at just summoning a bunch of mini guys, and so if your opponent doesn't have any removal, especially if you have Kunshin out, then this effect just makes you like live 3 extra turns, which is fantastic for you and very scary for your opponent, right? Especially when you have this big old winning condition. But either Jiren works, but both of them are just big bombs that you just have to take the damage for. So I think these are both really good cards and can be crazy powerful. Luckily, like this card doesn't have barrier, because this can still be blown up during the the damage step or something. But yeah, this is just crazy. How efficient this can be, and like versing against it, you're like, okay, I gotta go really ham against them, because otherwise they're just gonna be able to get some free turns and all that. So I'm really looking forward to see what kind of I've seen like I feel like a lot of like vanilla brews, but I have no doubt that there's some really cool special brews with it, and I'm looking forward to those.
Number 4.
Next up, we've got the Black Bibbidi Boo archetype. I don't know if there's like a really cool way to say it, but this deck, this deck's really interesting. If you don't know what it does, essentially you just have 5 cards in your hand at all. 5 cards or 0 cards in your hand at any point in the game, right? And a lot of effects trigger off having no cards in hand, and by doing that, you're able to get like a lot of really good effects off. And then at the end of your turn, if you're awakened, you're able to just draw 5 cards and refill. So and then drawing for turn, you get to 6 cards, but you charge 1 for energy. But yeah, these are just really good effects, and being able to do that, and like it's just kind of like a weird anti-hand control. But the big thing about this deck is that you're able to play like this 2-drop Majin Buu, and then you're able to go into your other ones just for free. I mean, just really. What is it? You just put any of the boos on top of the cards that you already have, and so we've got like a dual attack 15k one, we've got a double strike crit one, double strike one, we've got a crit one, and then we just go into like the big 6-drop as well, and just make it so like your opponent, like this card's really nuts too. So this card can't be removed from your barrier by your opponent's skills, and also permanent when this card is in rest mode, your opponent can't use non-leader card skills to add cards from their deck to their hand. Which means you can draw for turn, but you can't draw after that. You can't use any of those effects. So that's a really crazy one to do, which just means like your opponent, you kind of have like a target for what your opponent wants to attack, because if you don't, you get this big 30k triple strike for 3 on active battle. So really interesting archetype. It reminds me a lot of like Green Broly, and just you got to go really aggressive. And the Awakened condition is taking 2 cards from your life as well, which is really funny. Really unique as well, but just means like you're gonna have to play against 6 life no matter what. So it just feels like you're on like a little bit of handicap, kind of like how like the original SS3 Goku was. But also, if you remember that card was nuts because it was able to awaken early. So I think this is a good archetype, and Hopefully it's not too. The only annoying thing about it is that it's somewhat linear in how you build it. I think no doubt there's going to be some crazy builds for it, but I think there's just going to be a bunch of like crazy things that just lose to this, and then they have to just sideboard really hard against it, and then Buu can't do, like, it just feels like an easy like rock paper scissors kind of thing. But I think there's some potential. I'll be interested to see how it does.
Number 3.
Into the top 3, we've got Cooler. This leader is nuts, just by itself. Like even if this wasn't like a mill leader, just the fact that like let's just read what this card does because it has a lot of text. So when this card attacks leader card, draw 1. Boom. All right, cool, great. Auto, when the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is decreased by your opponent places the top card from their deck to their drop area. So you get to mill 1. And then auto, once per turn, it's your opponent's turn, when the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is decreased by the skill of one of your battle cards, draw 1 card. And then it's a untap 1, draw 1, awaken, and then on the backside, same things, but you just draw 1 when you attack anything. But then the power skill for milling and also drawing on your opponent's turn is good. But yeah, this leader reminds me a lot of, like, okay, the mill effect is there, and I don't think it's going to be fantastic, and it's like a long-term win condition, sure, but I don't think that's why this leader is going to be so good. The reason that's going to be so good is that it reminds me a lot of like the red pan, and the red pan, which is also like a 2-year-old card, right? But that leader was so good for so long because you're able to just draw cards for doing stuff you're doing anyways, right? And that's what this leader is going to be doing. This auto once per turn, that if your opponent's turn, when the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is decreased by the skill of one of your battle cards, you draw 1. So if you have this Cooler, so it's an arrival for 1 red, which is also crazy. This should be like a red-blue, in my opinion, but it's an arrival for 1. It's a 20k double strike, and also when you play this card, your opponent places the top card of their deck into the drop area, then choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and they get minus 10k for power for duration of the turn. So you get to like blow up 2 things, and then you also get to draw a card, which could just like mean that the card that you used for the arrival cost for this got replaced immediately. So they're going like -2, you're going like +1, and you get this 20k double strike out, and then also you get to mill them 3 for this 1 card, assuming they had 2 cards out in the field, right? This card's just really nuts. Just generates so much value by itself, and just pairs so nicely with this Cooler. And some other cards that, the big other cards from the set, it's like Frieza's Death Embrace. When you play this card, you just draw 1, and then for active battle for 1 red. And this is not a once per turn effect, which really turned me on to the card, because I thought it was just like, oh, you can only do it once. But you could just like threaten your opponent with this, because they're going to have to like, you give them like a bunch of 10Ks, and then every time you do that, they have to mill 1 card from the top of the deck too. But this can just destroy cards during the battle phase, which is nice. Like if this card is out and they play like this, the Jiren, which one? This one, the Universe's Strongest. You just have to pay 4 energy, and then the Jiren blows up. So that's crazy to me. Like, this is a really good card. Sure, it's squishy, but it just means your opponent has to spend energy to get rid of this, or they're just going to suffer for it. And then also the full power Frieza 100% overdrive. This is just like a good win condition itself. It's a triple strike. And then when this card attacks, choose all your opponent's battle cards, ignoring bearing, get minus 30k power for duration of the turn. And when the power of one of your opponent's battle cards is decreased, your opponent places 2 cards from the top of the deck into the drop area. And this is not only for this effect when it mills. So that means like now, anytime you hit something, you get like 3 cards to the drop. So if you like use an after image technique on your opponent's turn afterwards, you just get, they have to drop 3, and then they also like maybe lose a card, or everything like that. Really, really powerful effect, and triple strike is something to be scared about. It's something to be scared about as well. This just generates a lot of value, and it generates value by destroying your opponent's cards. So it's just you're getting value for doing stuff you already want to do. So I think this is great, and it's going to be a really strong deck.
Number 2.
All right, so, okay, explanation. So I'm putting this at number 2, but I don't necessarily think this is going to be like the number 2 deck or archetype or leader in, this next meta. But I'm putting it here because it just reminds me of kind of what the Green Broly archetype was, a year ago. And just all that. It's just a really aggressive deck, and it really says, it's a gatekeeper for the meta, right? If you can't beat this deck, then your deck isn't viable, I think. And that's the big thing for this meta. You have to be able to beat this deck if you want to be able to have a deck that does well. So, and part of the reason this deck is so good, and it reminds me of this green Broly as well, is that it's just really aggressive, and it's able to be aggressive by taking your own life, and then just cheating a lot of damage. So if you don't really know what this card does already, it has this auto once per turn. You can choose 1 or 2 cards in your life and add them to your hand. When this card attacks, switch to active mode, and then when your life is at 3 or less, you may draw 2, untap 1, and flip it over. So being able to untap 2 and draw 1 is fantastic. And then on the Awakened side, when this card attacks, draw 1, and then active battle once per turn during your opponent's turn. Choose 1 card in your life, place it in your drop area. This card gets plus 10k power and triple strike for duration of the turn. And active main once per turn, you can switch this card to active mode. At the end of the turn, you lose the game. So this can pop down a bunch of damage and pressure all by itself, and part of the reason we can do that is that none of any of the negates that we have that restricts things from being from attacking or anything are strictly for battle cards. So like Nimbus is like that, and any time magic is like that as well, and a bunch of these cards don't really interact with leader swings, and so that's why this card's able to be so powerful. And also just in the meta we were in, a lot of the cards, a lot of people weren't running negates. They were instead running cards that blew up battle cards during the battle step, right? So, this is something we have to adjust for as well. But the fact that it works with Defeat Kamehameha because the Awakened side is Son Goku is really dumb. Because, for 1 card, you get to get a 40k double or triple strike crit for 1 card investment. That is stupid. And even if it was just a 40k triple strike for 1 card investment, that's good. But the fact that you also crit all those 3 cards as well, so either you stay alive by pitching your hand, or you just get rid of a bunch of cards, and then you just get to restand and go again. You have to risk it, of course, but it's just really a really strong effect. And if you don't really know how you can get a lot of damage in 1 turn, and how turn 2 works is that you can. Let's say you're at 5 life, you swing with your leader, you take 2 cards, you restand it, and then during the battle step you awaken, and then you also take 1 more card from your life. So you're still active mode, and you're 25k triple strike. The battle ends, then you get to swing again, which still has a 25k triple strike, so that's another attack, and then you can just untap yourself again with your active main once per turn, end of game lose effect. And you get another swing. So that's 9 damage pressure on your opponent just by your leader alone, and that's just crazy amount. So without any interactions with this, we're gonna have a hard time. Either you gotta just put a bunch of negates out, because it's the same kind of thing as Broly. Once again, I think it's gonna be a gatekeeper. It's gonna be very strong out the gate, and then people are going to adjust to it. They're gonna find cards that counter it. They're gonna be running the cards that counter it, which is a huge thing too. And then it's just going to be I think just the aggro deck to play, but it's not going to be fantastic. So that's my thoughts for it.
Number 1.
And for number 1, who could have called it? It's the whole Invoker archetype, and mostly because all these cards are borderline broken all by themselves, and then they just all work together super well. First of all, we're going to talk about the leader. This card is stupid. It's the first Surge leader with any kind of self-awakening, which is fantastic. And I think it's the only weakness to other Surge leaders is that your opponent doesn't want to pressure you to awaken, because they know you can awaken at any time. So the fact that you're able to dig into your own life with your leader card and then get to your Surge life easier is fantastic. So there's that. This lets you recycle dead extra cards in hand on your Awakened side. It's an untap 1, which is really all you need for a lot of this, because you can untap a red-blue, and then all your red-blue stuff's activated. And then this active main battle stuff is super crazy too. So if your life is at 5 or less, this should definitely be a 4 or less or a 3 or less ability. I don't know why it's 5 or less, but it's 5 or less. And then if you have a Universe 7 card in play, you can draw 1, and then you can just see your opponent's entire hand, which is already worth it. But then you also get to drop either an extra card or a battle card with 35k power or less. Stupid powerful, just being able to do that on a whim. Even if it I don't know, I feel like just being able to pick out the card that would be able to counter, you need 2 counters in your hand at any time, right? Anything that you're trying to set up your opponent for, they can just look at your hand. It's the red Broly on steroids, because you don't have to pay any energy, and there's no the cost of having Universe 7 out is so much easier than having your opponent have 2 or more energy up, right? So that's crazy, but also it has the other thing that you choose up to 3 multicolor extra cards with different names, and you drop it from your drop area and or warp item to your hand. So, which is fantastic for just ending the game by getting like an extra catastrophic blow or anything like that. This is just a nutso card. So already this leader is good, and then we have other broken cards like Tournament Power Arena. Being able to just set up your draws and have like perfect knowledge of what you're getting for no cost besides drawing one, using one, or you go -1 for it, right? That's super worth it, especially since you get to, this is the same thing as like using it for your energy exhaust turn, because now all of your cards don't have, all your red blue cards don't have energy exhaust anymore. So like, I don't think this leader this card needed that effect, but it got it anyways. So playing a blue and then playing this card is very similar to just saying, oh, I just charge a red blue and then charge a blue turn 2, because you're going to have 2 energy up on turn 2 anyways. But then also being able to cycle these cards and look through them, and then all these extra cards are able to quote unquote go +1 by, if there's another extra card on top of your deck, then you can just draw it and add it to your hand. So really nuts being able to do all that, and just in general being able to fixture the top 3 cards of your deck, and you put them on the top and or bottom, putting them on the bottom of your deck too, and being able to, like, if you have a card that you don't need, you can just put it in the bottom of your deck and you don't see it anymore for the rest of the game is just nuts. And then we also have like the Invoker archetype, so being able to cheat out battle extra cards for 1 energy, which has always ended well for this game. And then like this Vegeta's crazy. It has barrier and deflect, so your opponent can still get rid of them, and especially with like the new extra combos, like any of these cards can get rid of the Vegeta, right? But then you just trade 3 energy for 3 energy, and we're really fine with that because we just want to get to 6 energy to play our big bomb Ultra Instinct Son Goku, which also untaps 3 energy when you play it, and then can just deal 4 damage to your opponent, and your opponent can't do anything because we don't have any like active main negation kind of things in this game. So that's super crazy, and we can do 4 damage by having 2 catastrophic blows in hand, and then that's really it, because we can just recycle the 1 more with the leader ability as well. So that's crazy, just being able to do 4 damage for nothing, like just by playing getting to turn 6. And then we also have like this, like I can't imagine if objection was still legal, like this deck would be super duper broken, so I'm happy that's gone. But then like these battle cards or these extra cards are good. You have like a field wipe for 1 energy that you can just put back to your hand for 1 energy. We have a draw 2 for 1 energy. We have a negate, technically up to 3 cards with 1 energy. We have a super duper preemptive strike for 8, for 4 energy. Just being able to like counter anything being played. And then we also have a blow up minus 30k during the active, and this can be active main or active battle. So just being able to blow up something during the combos, like nothing, like there are a handful of cards that can survive a minus 30k ignoring barrier during the battle step, because all the combo cards don't add up to the end. So like this is just like makes your opponent, like traps your opponent to investing cards on something. So I think all these cards are fantastic. And then they also have the secret rare, which is probably like the lamest of the 3 secret rares on this set, just because it's so archetype heavy. And especially since it's you have to have a universe 7. But this can just like win the game. You can just at any time, like on turn 5, if you use your like Goku effect to look at your opponent's hand, and you can just be like, oh, they don't have a negate, I can just win the game right now. Like that's stupid. Being able to just for like no investment say, oh, you can just decide to look at your opponent's hands, see what they have in there, and just decide, kind of realize like, oh, they have nothing to stop this, I win the game. So I think this is really overpowered. We'll see if I'm true on that, but just with all the cards that we have and all the cards we see, it's really hard to think the contrary of how many good cards this archetype has. And this archetype has 4 specific super rares as well: the Vegeta, the Goku, and their 2 kind of attack cards. So I think that's kind of scummy too, that they have so much high rarity cards as well, and and a secret rare, which is I think this is more necessary in this archetype than the Cell Successor is in its archetype, so that's kind of dumb too. But yeah, that's all the cards. I'm done being angry about Invoker. We'll see if it's an actually good archetype next week in Vegas. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what I got right, let me know what I got wrong, let me know your thoughts on all these cards, and I'll catch you all next time.